Hey everybody, Kenny here. In today's video, we're going to be discussing character creation and class changing in the game Stranger of Sword City. A couple quick disclaimers before we start. If you are particularly experienced with the Wizardry franchise of games, then a majority of these tips really won't have value for you. This is more for people who are just getting into this game and don't really have a background in this type of game, though there will be some information that will be specific to Stranger of Sword City. And also, just so I don't waste anybody's time who's willing to put in the effort themselves, if you press escape or start, depending on what platform you're playing on, and go to the member manual, the majority of this information can be found there. With those out of the way, let's get started. Tips about changing your class. Now, each time your characters change their class, their level is reduced by half rounded down. This is the way it's done in, I believe, the majority of the Wizardry games. There might be some where that's not the case, but for the most part, when you class change a character, that's what happens. Their level is reduced by half, and you do not gain the ability to assign stat points again until you surpass the max level that was reached with your previous class. For that reason, I believe that the first class any of your characters takes should be a class that you intend to go very far with. Like, I recommend at least level 28 before changing classes. As for every level that you go in a subsequent class, below the level you've reached in your highest level class, those are stat points you're just not getting. Another thing to think about when changing classes: if your intent with a certain character is to have them perform their final class change, and each character can change their class up to 5 times. If you intend for their final class change to be into a casting class, then they should start as a casting class. Here's why. You only gain MP each level if the character leveling up has a magic school assigned to them. So this is either the character is a casting class, or the character had previously been a casting class and has equipped the associated magic school that they want. So if you want to just have like some healing spells or some attack spells, and you'll notice the difference. Immediately upon equipping a magic skill from a previous class on a non-magic casting class, you'll see their MP pretty much double right away. Here's the problem though. You see, any character that starts as a casting class will have been gaining MP per level since level 1. Now, the only way for you to start that low when class changing would be to class change into a casting class as a level 3 or below, which you don't ever want to do, because then those are entire skill slots that you missed out on. You always want to level up to at least level 13 so you can gain a skill slot for all of the classes you went through with this character. So if they're only changing their class at level 13 or higher, then you'll always be behind on levels where you attain MP compared to a character who started as a casting class. As you can see here, this is a character that leveled up to level 30 as a fighter, then leveled up to level 28 as a ranger, and now as a level 20 cleric has absolutely pitiful MP. But also, to be fair, this character has 10 intelligence and 10 piety. Very low stats for gaining MP at all. So then let's look at my paladin here. He leveled up to 30 as a knight, then to level 26 as a cleric, and with a fairly high piety stat, clearly ended up with more MP than my main character, but nowhere near as much as my casters that started the game as casting classes. While on the subject of MP, keep in mind that the intelligence and piety stats, while the stats that contribute to your MP, don't contribute in the way you might think. They don't necessarily increase the amount of MP you gain, but instead the frequency in which you gain it. What do I mean by that? Every time you level up while capable of gaining MP, there's kind of some Fire Emblem math that goes on, determining what you gain. So just like Fire Emblem, maybe your MP will go up by just one, which has the highest chance of occurring if your piety and intelligence are particularly low. You may gain somewhere between 2 and 9 MP. Actually, possibly even like 2 and 7 MP. If your intelligence and or piety is alright, there's a better chance of that occurring. But reaching above, I'd say 8 MP is very unlikely unless you happen to be a character with very high piety and intelligence. And for you save scummers out there, do keep in mind that the developers considered save scumming into their MP equation. So, from what I can tell, there's some kind of level up seed that determines how your HP and MP will go up every level. I don't know when it's determined. I don't know if it happens each time you increase a stat. I don't know if it happens right at character creation. What I do know for sure is that despite what I've said here, a character that you've seen level up to, let's say, level 18 and gain 24 HP and 1 MP will always gain 24 HP and 1 MP when performing that level up, no matter what you do. Doesn't matter if you quit out of the game, doesn't matter if you just reload your save, doesn't matter what attempts you make, that seed will always be there to make sure that the HP and MP go up by that same quantity no matter what. There's no changing it. So it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're planning your class changes per character. Also, something to be aware of, if you're looking through all the different classes and you're not seeing something in a class that you believe you would bother using a skill slot for, but you still want another skill slot, for those class changes, instead of picking the class that you wouldn't be using any skills from, you can double dip into a class you previously leveled up in, and you will still gain the extra skill slot at level 13, just like you would in a class that you hadn't leveled up in before. This, I think, was a very appreciated loophole that the developers obviously chose to put in the game, so that way players don't have to level up characters in unnecessary classes just to gain an extra skill slot. So keep that in mind. Now let's talk about character creation. When creating a character, there are quite a few talents you can choose from, and most people will tell you just to pick the fortunate talent for the extra skill points. And if your intention is to min-max a character, then yes, that is the correct way to go. You want as many points as possible, make your character very old with the fortunate talent, and you will likely be able to roll some pretty high stats. But don't discount the others. Some of the talents are kind of useless, such as the Invincible talent. The Invincible talent is something you should only get if you don't want a character to level up as a knight, but you still want them to have those particular status immunities. And that's really the only time when that's a good talent to pick. This character here is one of the default characters that the game starts you with, and I didn't realize until after I gained that particular skill in that class that the devs started me out with a character that has a redundant skill set. Now, this didn't prevent me from continuing to use this character. Matter of fact, I've clearly used him for quite some time. But my intention was not to min-max my party, and so that wasn't something that really concerned me. But if your intention is to create the most efficient party as possible, then that's definitely something you want to keep an eye out on. But, take a look at the other talents. You can find some that do things you really want to be able to do, like spotting secret walls and noticing when you've entered an ambush spot, things like that. Also, if your intention is to min-max, here are a couple tips on that. When rolling your stat points, try to get above 20. That will allow you to have a pretty good head start regardless of what you're going for. Also, keep in mind that the stat cap for every character is whatever their racial base stats are. So in the case of a human, humans start with a 9 in every stat. So it's whatever the base is plus 20. So the most any human can get any stat up to is 29, but it's different for every race. For that reason, you don't really need to go for crazy stats, but if your intention is to get to stat cap with at least 2 stats, then you definitely want to aim for high starting skill points. Also, as far as the whole stat cap thing goes, I know that in New Game Plus, the stat cap goes up by an additional 10, so up to 39 for a human. So that's something to consider. That's it for this video. I hope you found these tips useful and are able to apply them in your journey into Stranger of Sword City. Thanks for watching. You have a great day. Bye.